American South, he's always there, fighting for freedom over land and air. G.I. Joe!
So Hasbro had their first G.I. Joe fan stream of the year on Wednesday, yesterday as of the time of this recording, and they had a lot to show off, and in my opinion, it was all some pretty good stuff. First things first though, if you're a collector of the O-ring figures, then there's nothing here for you. Unfortunately, the O-ring line didn't receive any love this time around, and I think that was a big miss. First off, the O-ring collectors haven't received much love lately, and they're about due. Second, with the Sky Striker having just been sent out at the beginning of the year, I think it would have been a great time to get more out there for the line. The second thing I think is worth mentioning is that the Joe team laid out the pricing structure for the year, and I always like when companies do this. This is our pricing structure, this is what you can expect, this is how it is. I like this much more than when companies, or even lines within the same company, have the attitude of, just charge them whatever. So we know that the standard figure is going to be at the $24.99 price point. This has pretty much been a standard across Hasbro in general. Now there will be a deluxe figure release. That's a figure that comes with a lot of accessories, maybe multiple head sculpts. That will be $34.99. At the $44.99 price point, we get a figure and pet pack. Think the Snake Eyes and Timber or Crocmaster and Fiona packs that we've already received. And then last, there's the price point for a figure 2-pack that will come in at $54.99. And I know at first it seems like buying 2 standard figures is actually cheaper than a figure 2-pack, but it looks like the figure 2-packs are going to be loaded up with accessories and blast effects as well, kind of like what we saw with the Viper 3-pack. What this doesn't cover is something like a figure and a vehicle, like Breaker and the Ram, or the Televiper and Flight Pod that we know are coming down the line, so I don't know if those would fall under these price points, or if that would be something new they'll roll out when the time comes. Starting the reveals on Wednesday, they opened up with a few figures that were mentioned in name only, no pictures, no computer renders, nothing like that. The first one they announced was Quick Kick, which I am very happy about. I always liked Quick Kick. I like his look and his character, and I think he's going to translate really well into a modern figure. I'm curious to see if they're going to keep that shirtless Bruce Lee type look or come up with something a little new, a little updated for him. The next one that was announced is a figure and pet set, and that is Mutt and Junkyard. I know these two have been a fan request for some time now, and I think it would be cool getting them in the collection, but I would have rather seen something a little different or more colorful than another standard soldier type. We have a lot of green on the shelf right now, and it could use some brightening up. I really like when we get figures like Barbecue for the line, or, once again, potentially Quick Kick as well, just adding something different to the shelf for the G.I. Joe side. And speaking of adding something different to the shelf, we have our third name-only reveal, and that is Big Boa, and I am really excited about this guy. Big Boa was one of those crazy, weird characters for the vintage line that I think was designed to be Cobra's hand-to-hand combat instructor. The original figure came with a pair of boxing gloves and wore this great, just like big steel helmet, and I just love characters like this. I'm curious to see if Big Boa is going to be built on the larger Sergeant Slaughter buck or something similar like that. I think he's going to be great. And it's going to be really cool having him and Quick Kick on the shelf together, a boxer and a kickboxer. Now let's get to the meat of why you're watching this video, and that is, what did Hasbro show off? To start, they put up some new render reveals, and man did they have some good ones. Remember, these are just reveals, no pre-order, just getting a look at them. And starting things off, we have Tunnel Rat. And despite what I just said about having a lot of green on the shelf when it comes to the Joes, I really like this guy. I like all the gear he comes with, and look at that old school looking revolver. I love it. Another addition that Lenny pointed out is that the classified Tunnel Rat comes with a pair of night vision optics that the original figure didn't have. Nice addition there. The next one we saw was this updated version of Firefly. Now, I had originally thought this figure was going to be a retro carded figure, one of those Walmart exclusives, but they didn't say anything about that. Also, it looks like this version of Firefly, which is definitely a more classic vintage look for Firefly, doesn't look like he has the mangled eye like the first version does. At first I was curious why they were releasing a new Firefly already, and then I remembered that the first version of Firefly was a Cobra Island exclusive. So there are probably a lot of collectors out there that still haven't been able to get their hands on the first version, so now is the time that they can get Firefly in their collection. Another one that we saw a render reveal of is Shadow Tracker, and truthfully I have no connection to this character. I wasn't collecting the G.I. Joe line that he was part of, so I'm not even sure which side he's on. I think he's Cobra, but he does look pretty awesome. At first I thought his bow was a reissue of the Storm Shadow bow, but the more that I look at it, I think it's an original piece for this figure. And I love all of the gear he comes with, especially those 3 masks. And last but certainly not least, the reveal that I was most excited for was my man, my hero, my champion, Lowlight. I know I've mentioned it before. I have a thing for snipers. I always play the sniper online or in video games like in Halo or Call of Duty or whatever. And Lowlight was one of those figures that, when I was a kid, he was pulled out pretty much whatever the mission was when I was playing G.I. Joe. Him and Stalker. This is everything I was hoping for. A throwback to the original figure. He comes with a rifle that looks like it breaks down and fits completely into the rifle case, along with his silencer. And I am just so freaking excited about this one being rolled out. And not for nothing, but during Valicon this past weekend, Valaverse announced that they were going to be making ghillie suits that can be strapped onto pretty much any 6-inch figure. I might have to pick a few of these up for Lowlight. Also, they did say the goggles will come off on the final product. After the renders, they jumped into what everybody was really waiting for, and that is, what pre-orders did they have for us that day? Well, if you've been following the fan streams and watching what's up, you probably already have a pretty good idea of what was going to be announced. First, at the standard price point of $24.99, we saw Copperhead, Torpedo, Shipwreck, and the standard variant of Bazooka. There's not much to say about Bazooka. If you picked up the Tiger Force release of this figure, then you know what to expect. I have the Tiger Force release of Bazooka, but as I've said before, I don't really open the repaints. I leave them boxed up and wait for the standard version to be put on the shelf. Copperhead, I think, looks great. I love the coloring of him, and I really like the blunted machete that he comes with. The scoped long barrel revolver is a really nice addition to him as well. Shipwreck is okay. I know there are a lot of fans that have been chomping at the bit for this one, but personally, I never really liked this guy. I'm going to get him, don't get me wrong, I want him to add to the collection, but he's not going to be at the front of the shelf. I do have to admit that they did a really good job on the deco with him, especially with his tattoos. Taking a look at Torpedo, I can't believe that with all of the accessories he comes with, all of that kibble, that this is a standard priced figure. The air tank has a removable mask attached to it, he comes with an SMG and his harpoon gun, his knife, and those flippers. This is another one that I am really excited about getting. They showed off in the live stream that the flippers are a soft rubber and very bendable, so there shouldn't be too much worry about them breaking. The SMG will fit into his backpack, but I don't think there's a place to hang the flippers when they're not being used. And finally, the last of the mainline wave of figures that they had was the man, the myth, the legend, one of the original 13, Rock and Roll. To say I am excited about this figure is a harsh understatement. Look, I'm not one that really falls victim to nostalgia much, but Rock and Roll was one of the first figures I had from the original vintage line, and with that big honkin' M60 and the ammo belts he wore across his body, this was one of the coolest figures in the line at the time, plus he rolled his sleeves up. I love that they kept all of those features for the classified figure. I also appreciate that they gave him a tan shirt instead of more green. It helps break up the color a bit, as well as being a bit of an homage to the second incarnation of Rock and Roll when he was outfitted with the miniguns. I'm really glad they kept the M60 for this one. I like the heavy artillery roadblock figure, but I kind of hate that they gave him a minigun instead of his Ma Deuce. Rock and Roll with the M60 is just so iconic and awesome that they had to do it. And look at those tats! I'm pretty sure those wouldn't be allowed in the service in real life, but man, do they look great on this figure. Stepping up to the $34.99 price point gave us the only deluxe figure of this line, and also a Hasbro Pulse exclusive. You know him, you'll love him, You've been waiting for him. Snow Job. Look at this guy. Look at all the gear he comes with. Skis, snowshoes, sniper rifle, a hood up, a hood down, ski poles, ammo magazine, pistol, removable goggles, 2 head sculpts, and a backpack that can store everything except the second head sculpt. Snow Job is going to be awesome. There's no two ways about it. I like how they broke up the white with some off-white or gray and those brown straps of his web gear that he wears. Once again, this is a Hasbro Pulse exclusive. Links for this, for all of this by the way, are going to be in the description below. Stepping up to the $44.99 price point, which is the figure and pet pack, and in this case, pet can also mean anti-tank drone, we have Scrap Iron. I'll tell you what, when they first announced Scrap Iron, I was a very about it. I had the vintage figure, and I thought the missile launcher he came with was pretty cool, but I just never got much use out of him. But when they showed this off, along with that drone, suddenly Scrap Iron moved to the top of the list for me. Rocking a very vintage look with the dark blue and red, Scrap Iron can take his helmet off to reveal that half of his face has been burned and scarred due to a weapon build gone wrong, and Scrap Iron, being the perfectionist that he is, covers the scar up with his black helmet. I don't know if the tank treads roll, but they do articulate independently of each other. So for the price, you get the figure, his gear, his pistol, that big freaking drone, and some really awesome blast effects. Lenny also showed off that the blast effects can be fitted to bazooka to make it look like he's firing a rocket. He didn't mention if it would fit the Tiger Force bazooka, but I'm assuming it would. I also hope they do something like this if they ever come out with a Zap figure. And I mean, Zap's one of the original 13, like they have to. And finally, that brings us to the final offering of the Fanstream, and this is something we've all been waiting for since we first saw the renders, the Cobra Female Trooper 2-pack. The Cobra Valkyries, as they're calling them. Coming in at $54.99, you get the 2 female figures, gear molded in black, gear molded in khaki. Lenny was very insistent on it being khaki and not gold. 3 helmets, 2 standard and 1 officer's helmet, 3 head sculpts, 2 standard and 1 wearing a gas mask, and lots of blast effects. Like I said, this is coming in at $54.99 and is also a Hasbro Pulse exclusive. And that was everything they had. I think this was some good stuff, some really good stuff. I put down a lot of money on these pre-orders. I snagged 1 of everything and 2 of the Valkyrie packs. The last time I checked, Hasbro Pulse still has pre-orders up for their 2 exclusives, Snow Job and the Valkyrie 2-pack, but a lot of the standard grade figures as well as Scrap Iron are sold out. Fortunately though, they are still available for pre-order at Big Bad Toy Store and Entertainment Earth. I'll have links to everything we talked about in the description below, and I'll be sure to link you to merch that is still available as of time of the recording. Like I said, nothing for the O-Ring line, nothing about the Televiper and Trouble Bubble, nothing about the Steel Core 2-pack, and nothing about the rumored HasLab Dragonfly. Also, nothing new about the vintage carded Walmart exclusives, and nothing about the Tiger Force and Python Patrol lines from Target. And finally, if you have the time or the inclination to watch the actual fan stream, and I'll link to that below as well, you should check it out. There's a lot that they talked about that I didn't even touch on. Things like the storytelling that goes into the build of each figure, the world building they're attempting, and just listening to Lenny talk about the thought that goes into these figures is really nice. Like, really nice. Like, this guy loves his job and has a lot of passion for his job, and it's just really cool to listen to him talk about it. So if you watch the fan stream, feel free to talk to me about this lineup. If you didn't watch the fan stream, feel free to talk to me about this lineup. I definitely think this is one of the best reveals the Joe team has had so far, and that's saying a lot because they've had some really good reveals. So play well, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thank you for watching.